But then there are many other people where the house is significantly underassessed, and it really isn't going to do you or the seller justice.
But doesn't this get into my question to you guys earlier, though? You know, the house is priced at X. Where do you come in? I mean, you might look at assessed, but I agree with Seth.
Well, here's what's good about that. I mean, the dynamics of that has changed so drastically.
Really
if my grandmother has owned her house forever, the assessed value has never caught up to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, now if something is sold in the last 2 and 3 years...
Where does she live? I'm going to make note of that.
No, I'm not telling you. When your daughter's ready to buy a house, you're all set. But it's, you know, and so what happens now is that if it's 2 or 3 years ago, but then it was the high of the market. So it's really nice what someone wants to pay for it. But an agent, as a buyer, your agent has the ability to go into the system, to look at what is sold in the neighborhood over the last 2 years, to just give you a general idea of what is really selling.
I think that's
to look at that, and those are the tools that you can
How about
provide.
the loan side? Do you look at assessed value? If I'm asking you for a loan for $100,000 and the house is assessed at $80,000, are you going to give it to me?
We're not going to look at assessed value. We're going to look at appraised value. And clients often ask us that question. What's the difference between appraised value, assessed value?
That's a good question.
Market value.
Right.
And the way that I normally explain it is that an appraisal or market value, in your case, is up to the minute.
Right.
Assessed value, you don't know when that last assessment was done.
Exactly.
It's not up to the minute.
And they're trying to go through the process and update it. But there's so many houses out there now. There's one house in the neighborhood. There's always one house in the neighborhood that's bigger and better than everybody else's, and the rest of the neighborhood is average, and you have this one house sitting there.
Yeah.
The hard part is it has to get appraised. Now, if it doesn't appraise, and that really hasn't hit this marketplace so much as it does in the major metropolitan areas, where it doesn't appraise, and then what do you do at that point in time?
About 6 months ago, we were running into a little problem, you know, with lower appraisals.
Right.
But it really, we were only seeing them. I'm not kidding.
Well, I think they were skittish appraisers more than the market.
No, I think that the data hadn't caught up, I think, yet. And the problem was, I think, with newer homes that were maybe 3 to 4 years old. That's the only area that we really saw a problem.
One other thing on the assessed value is sometimes you've got a neighbor who's been knocking on the assessor's door every single year, year after year, and the next door neighbor has never even grieved once. Well, which house is going to be assessed for more? It's not because he's worth more. It's just because the next door neighbor's been a real pain in the assessor's butt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me kind of do a little reset here. The time's getting a little bit away from me, which is a good thing. We're better than halfway through the program. If you're watching Thursday night, we're coming to you live. But for those of you who don't catch the live broadcast or missed a little bit of it, Fridays and Sundays, 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. on WCNY2. Full rebroadcast of the show, so if you miss us on Thursdays, don't forget to catch that time. And a reminder, too, and I'll give you our website, it might come up, you can email us questions. We like to hear from you with topics or ideas for shows, questions, and there it is right there, financialfitness@WCNY.org. Can I move into the sell side quickly, because I'm a little bit long on this. Chip, I think it was you. You said right now there's a little bit more inventory out there. I don't think that's surprising. Probably a little bit more supply.
Yeah.
Again, I think you also addressed the issue of what might distinguish one house from another, but obviously it's the stuff that we've heard in the past. Up to date, keep it clean, make it look good, turnkey.
Right. What you want to make sure is that, I mean, it's the things that you hear on, no offense, but HGTV all the time. You got to keep the closets clean, you got to have the kitchen cupboards clean, you got to have the kitchen counters clean, but you also need to have them updated as well. You want to make sure that the paint's good. You want to make sure that the lawn has been edged. Those little things. But more importantly, for a seller, he's got to make sure that he's on the internet. Tom gave a statistic about 89% of all buyers are looking on the internet. But even more importantly, under 55 years of age, looking for houses over 175, 100% of those people are on the internet looking for houses.
I don't question those numbers, but what about, Tom, not just, you know, the gourmet kitchens and the tile floors, etc., but school districts. I mean, you guys are going to tell me it's location, but school districts must play a role here as well, making one house more, if you will, valuable than another.
Well, I think there's every city, every county, everybody has their visions about different school systems out there. I think it really you have to look at it. I think there's all the school systems are great, and depending what certain schools are better in arts or music, And what are you looking for, and what's the community? I think it's more about the school, it's about the community, it's what's around it. What are the sports programs if your kids are in sports? You know, to be specific about one school better than the other.
Yeah, okay.
I was very fortunate. I went to a couple different high schools in the area. So
yeah, but look how you turned out.
Look at me. Yes.
I'm kidding with you. Do you, Seth, have to get involved early on? I'm thinking that, you know, as a buyer, the buyer takes all the responsibility, all the risk on. You're buying a house. You know, I assume you want to get a what do you call it?
The seller should be involved with their attorney right away, regardless of the fact that they may not have a contract. We like to see our sellers get with us at the time of perhaps listing, so that we can start locating the abstract of title, the survey, the documentation that they may not have their hands on.
It's the buyer, though, that has to pay the inspection, as I recall.
Yeah, typically the buyer pays for most of the due diligence work, although a seller is going to generally pay for, in this area, the septic dye test, septic pumping perhaps, the well flow, well bacteriological test, EPA standards for lead nitrite and nitrate, things of that nature.
It's all good stuff.
We're seeing some sellers actually do a pre-listing inspection, so they get to know what are the problems that I've been ignoring for all these years.
And that's the edging of the lawn. They're just making sure that the house is cleaned up.
That's right. They want to make sure that there's nothing wrong in the foundation, or that the window that's rotted, is it really going to show up in a home inspection? And for $300, they can get that home inspection.
Well, and there's a piece to that. For that $300, when a seller gets a contract, they've lost 80% of their bargaining power.
When a seller gets a contract.
When they get their contract,
the offer.
When they receive the offer that comes in, whatever that's priced at, that's 80% of the negotiation tools from that point in time.
Okay.
Coming back with a counteroffer. So the shape of the house is going to play into it. So knowing what's going on with your property, and if there's things you can fix ahead of time, it's just something. If they see an older roof, they're going to come in.
Okay.
And they come with a low offer.
Yeah.
They're starting low, and they're only going to go so far.
Well, then that begs the question. You know, we all think our house is worth more than it is. I'm sure you deal with that on a day-to-day basis.
We as realtors, we even make that same mistake ourselves.
Okay. So again, this is the opposite question of where to make the offer, where to price it. Is it just a matter of looking up and down the street? Is that
again, condition plays a big role, but the neighborhood plays the biggest role. If every house in the neighborhood, no house is sold over $200,000, and you want to price your house at $225,000, you better have a really substantial value that's over all the other houses. And that feature or that benefit has to be perceived by the market, not just by you.
And with the expectation that it may not sell in the time frame you're looking for because it is overpriced.
Would you guys tell me the average time in the market is now for a typical house?
That's a really hard. They're saying 69 days, but it's longer than that because houses relist.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's not just what every house is sold in the neighborhood. It's also if there are 25 houses on the market that are in the competitive range that you're in, and we're only selling 4 houses a month, you know that you've got to be really close to what that market value is. You cannot price yourself above that if you want to sell in the next 2 months. If you don't care and you want to have your house on the market for 8 months, then you're going to have a price fluctuation too.
Right. Who wants to talk to me about new home construction? Are they building? Is there going to be a parade of homes this year? I'm not being funny. I haven't heard. Okay, so the building is still up and alive?
The parade is up in Mallard's Landing. There is, it's actually condominium development. It's an unusual
homes.
Well, it's
condominium.
It was originally intended to be condominium. It was an unusual development in that most people perceive condominiums as being apartment types in a building. This was done by a particular builder who developed it as a condominium, which affords them a significant tax benefit. The assessments are handled very differently. They couldn't get their approval for that section. Which is the Parade of Homes series of lots.
But I'm just on construction overall, though. Is that still a pretty active market, you think? Or
actually, to go back to the statistics, April they had 6 new construction contracts for the Greater Syracuse Association of Realtors.
Put that in context for me.
6.
Okay,
that's down 67%.
Okay, well there you go.
So builders are hurting right now.
But there's only so much growth that this area can support. We at the community day, we heard statistics that there hasn't been any population growth here since 1960.